Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, chapter number 6, text number 34. Na bharati me anga mishra or mrisha upalakshyate na vai kvachit me manasaha mrisha gatihi na me rishikani patanti asatpathe yat me hrida outkantyavata dritaha harihi. Na bharati mega mrishopalakshate na vai kvachin me manaso mrisha gatihi. Na me rishikani patantya satpathe yan me hridotkantyavata trito harihi. Na bharati men gamrisho palakshate na vai kvachin me manaso mrisha gatihi. Na me rishikani patantya satpathe yan me hridotkantyavata drito harihi. Na bharati men gamrisho palakshate na vai kvachin me manaso mrisha gatihi. Na me rishikani patantya satpathe yan me hridotkantyavata drito harihi.
Bharati Mengamrisho Palakshate
Na bharati men gamasho palakshate
Navakachin Me Manaso Mishagati
na vai kvachin me manaso mrisha gatihi.
Namahishikani Patantya Satpate
Na me rishikani patantya satpate
Yame Hridautkantayavata Duto Hari.
yan me hridotkantyavata tito harihi.
Na bharati menga misho palakshite Krachin me manaso mishagatihi. Nishikani patantya satpate yan me hridotkantyavata drito harihi.
Na bharati me niga prisho palakshate na vai kvachin me manasho mrishagati. Name Krishikani patanti ashatpate. Yanme hridatau kantya advata drihati.
Navarati menga mersho palakshate. Navai kvachin me manaso mrishagatihi. Name Hrishikani patantya satpate. Yanme hridot kantya vatadito harihi.
Bhagavati me nigame shopalak yakshate. Navai vachin me manaso mishagati. Name rishi kanti patantya satpate. Yan me hido kantya vatadrito hari.
Nabarati me nirgamashopalakshate. Navai kotin me manaso mrishagati. Na me hishikani patanti ashatpate. Jan me hridat kantya vatadrito harihi.
Navarati menga mersho palakshate.
Bharati Mangamarshopalakshate
Navai kvachin me manaso mrishagatihi.
Navai Kachinme Manasur Shagati
Name Hrishikani patantya satpate.
Nirtani Patantya Satpate
Yanme hridot kantya vatadrito harihi.
Yanme Hridot Kandhyavatadrito Harihi Yanasopalakshate Chile Manasobra Shakati Name Rishikani Patantya Satpate Yanme Hridot Kandhyavatadrito Harihi. Okay. Are there any devotees online that would like to chant now? Okay. Continuing. Na, never. Bharati, statements. Me, mind. Anga, O Narada. Mrisha, untruth. Upalakshyate, prove to be. Na, never. Vai, certainly. Kvachit, at any time. Me, mind. Manasaha, of the mind. Mrisha, untruth. Gatihi, progress. Na, nor. Me, mind. Rishikani, senses. Patanti, degrades. Asatpadhe, in temporary matter. Yat, because. Me, mind. Hrida, heart. Utkantyavata, by great earnestness. Dhritaha, caught hold of. Harihi, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Translation. O Narada, because I have caught hold of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, with great zeal, whatever I say has never proved to have been false, nor is the progress of my mind ever deterred, nor are my senses ever degraded by temporary attachment to matter. Purport. Lord Brahma is the original speaker of Vedic wisdom to Narada, and Narada is the distributor of transcendental knowledge all over the world through his various disciples, like Vyasadeva and others. The followers of Vedic wisdom accept the statements of Brahmaji as gospel truth, and transcendental knowledge is thus being distributed all over the world by the process of disciplic succession from time immemorial, since the beginning of the creation. Lord Brahma is the perfect liberated living being within the material world, and any sincere student of transcendental knowledge must accept the words and statements of Brahmaji as infallible. Vedic knowledge is infallible because it comes down directly from the Supreme Lord unto the heart of Brahma. And since he is the most perfect living being, Brahmaji is always correct to the letter. And this is because Lord Brahma is a great devotee of the Lord, who has earnestly accepted the lotus feet of the Lord as the supreme truth. In the Brahma Samhita, which is compiled by Brahmaji, he repeats the aphorism, Govindam Adi Purusham, Tam Ahang Bhajami. I am a worshipper of the original personality of Godhead Govinda, the primeval Lord. So whatever he says, whatever he thinks, and whatever he does normally in his mood are to be accepted as truth because of his direct and very intimate connection with Govinda, the primeval Lord. Sri Govinda, who pleasingly accepts the loving transcendental service of his devotees, gives all protection to the words and actions of his devotees. The Lord declares in the Bhagavad Gita 9.31, Kunteya pratijhanihi. O son of Kunti, please declare it. The Lord asks Arjuna to declare. And why? Because sometimes the declaration of Govinda himself may seem contradictory to mundane creatures, but the mundaner will never find any contradiction in the words of the Lord's devotees. The devotees are especially protected by the Lord so that they may remain infallible. Therefore, the process of devotional service always begins in the service of the devotee who appears in disciplic succession. The devotees are always liberated, but that does not mean that they are impersonal. The Lord is a person eternally, and the devotee of the Lord is also a person eternally. Because the devotee has his sense organs, even at the liberated stage, he is therefore a person always. And because the devotee's service is accepted by the Lord in full reciprocation, the Lord is also a person in his complete spiritual embodiment. The devotee's senses being engaged in the service of the Lord never go astray from the attraction of false material enjoyment. The plans of the devotee never go in vain, and all this is due to the faithful attachment of the devotee for the service of the Lord. This is the standard of perfection and liberation. Anyone beginning from Brahmaji down to the human being is at once put on the path of liberation simply by his attachment in great earnestness for the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, the primeval Lord. The Lord affirms this in the Bhagavad Gita 14.26. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatitaitan Brahmabhuyaya kalpate. Anyone, therefore, who is earnestly serious in heart and soul about being in intimate touch with the personality of Godhead in the relationship of transcendental loving service will always be infallible in words and action. The reason is that the Supreme Lord is absolute truth, and anything earnestly dovetailed with the absolute truth attains the same transcendental quality. On the other hand, any amount of mental speculation on the strength of material science and knowledge without any bona fide touch with the absolute truth is sure to be a mundane untruth and failure, simply due to not being in touch with the absolute truth. Such godless, unfaithful words and actions, however materially enriched, are never to be trusted. That is the purport of this important verse. A grain of devotion is more valuable than tons of faithlessness. Nabhadati mengana mrishopalakshite navai kvachin me manaso mrishagatihi name rishi khani patantya satpathe yan me hridotkantyavata dhrito harihi. O Narada, because I have caught hold of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, with great zeal, whatever I say has never proved to have been false, nor is the progress of my mind ever deterred, nor are my senses ever degraded by temporary attachment to matter. So thank you all devotees for being here. Hare Krishna. Here we're hearing from Brahma, and Brahma is glorifying the potency of devotional service and how such devotional service and enthusiasm or zeal for devotional service is the cause of his being an actual authority. So Lord Brahma is the original speaker of Vedic wisdom. So Prabhupada spent some time describing that this knowledge is being distributed, and we have a wonderful, pictorial representation of this process here on the wall, that Lord Krishna is the original person. So if you go back until you don't have a father, say, okay, you have a father. Does your father have a father? Okay, good. You may have seen his photograph, or you may have spoken with him before. What about his father? You may not have seen him, or maybe, right? Maybe you just have a photo like that, but you can understand somebody knew of that person. And then when you go back all the way until there's no more father, so the person doesn't have a father, that's God. And that's Krishna. And so this is actually shown here. Krishna is the supreme original person. Govindam Adi Purusham. So Govindam is a name for the supreme person, Krishna. And Adi Purusham is another name for him, which means that he's the original person or the original supreme enjoyer. If he's the original owner, right? Owner is usually the enjoyer, right? If somebody has a nice vehicle, it's not that I'm the enjoyer of his vehicle. He's the owner of that. He's a proprietor. So he's the one that's meant to drive it around and do errands with it for Krishna, right? Of course, when you dovetail that, which is spoken about later, when you dovetail matter in Krishna service, it takes on an absolute quality as well. So back to the point was that Krishna is the original person, and he directly imparted knowledge unto Lord Brahma. So this Vedic knowledge is eternal knowledge. Veda means knowledge. So we're not interested in some knowledge which comes and goes and is relatively applicable due to time, due to how my feelings are changing and the change of the seasons. We're interested in the absolute truth, that knowledge which is infallible, which is always true, which always applies, right? And this Vedic knowledge is the property of God. This knowledge is used to know him, and he is the knower of all of this knowledge. That's stated in Bhagavad Gita 15:15, that he is the Vedaishcha Sarvar, Aham Eva Vedyo. He is the, of all the Vedas, I am to be known, right? So all this knowledge is ultimately meant to help us understand himself. And he shares this knowledge by his great mercy to all the living entities, all the conditioned souls in this material world through a bona fide system. So he's a systematic person, and he follows his system by imparting this knowledge to Brahma. And Brahma is not an ordinary living entity. He's the most pious living entity in the entire universe. That means he's the most righteous, pure soul that is still within the material world. He's an individual living being just like we are, but his post, his body, his mind and intelligence is so vast, so powerful, because of his qualifications, right? So he receives this knowledge directly from Krishna. So it's like this. If you receive knowledge about a particular subject from the expert in that field, right, you become the expert. So you may have studied a trade and you may have learned from the best, right? And if you learn from the best, then you can save time and you don't have to learn by experience. Of course, that process of knowledge is also there, but you may be able to save time if you hear from the authority, right? So this is the descending process of knowledge. Take knowledge from the perfect original person who created everything and is the master of everything and is all omnipotent, and take knowledge from him. And then take knowledge from the people who took knowledge from him, and so forth. This knowledge is being spread all over the cosmos, right? By those persons who have heard submissively the message of the Supreme Lord. And anybody who comes in contact with this knowledge, they're very fortunate. And they can become very quickly more or less masters of their own destiny. They can choose. They can choose to actually rise above the modes of nature. Whereas without this parampara knowledge, one is dictated to by the modes of nature. One is forced to act, right? And that actor, he thinks that he's the doer. Kartaham iti manyate. He's thinking he's the doer, when in actuality, these activities are performed by the modes of nature, which he has associated with, and his association with those modes of nature has been the cause of development of a certain set of senses and mind, which actually are in control of him. So when you come in contact with this parampara knowledge, it frees you from that obligation to act according to the nature, which has been, awarded to you due to your karma. And you can actually choose to rise above by the Lord's mercy. How do you choose that? Then you have to choose as Brahma has chosen. Hold on to the lotus feet of the Lord with great zeal. That's our choice. Then he gives spiritual strength to actually live that righteous way of life. We can always choose to catch hold of his lotus feet with great zeal. What does that phrase mean? To catch hold of the lotus feet of the Lord with great zeal. That means that, right? That we are firmly fixed in his orders and his instructions. We were speaking yesterday on this point, and when we engage in full devotional service without any fall down, meaning that we're always sincerely trying our best to do what Krishna would like for us to do, to live how he wants us to live and think how he wants us to think, then automatically we come to the spiritual platform. So that's described as Prabhupada put in the purport, Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate. Those who are fully engaged in my devotional service without any fall down, right? They immediately transcend the modes of nature and come to the level of Brahman, right? That Brahman, that's that infallible platform. Because we ourselves, we are eternal spirit souls who are part and parcel of the eternal spirit, Krishna, the supreme spirit. And he is full in eternality, bliss, and knowledge. And being a little particle of him, we have the same qualities in our pure state. So there's no question of being without knowledge if we're actually in connection with him. So that was spoken that anyone is earnestly serious in heart and soul about being in intimate touch with the personality of Godhead in the relationship of transcendental loving service will always be infallible in words and action. So this is how we can become perfect speaker, perfect doer, a perfect actor in this world. Our actions will always be without any inebrities. Our speech will always be perfect. How? If we are relying on the Lord's strength and the Lord's purity. If we're in touch with him, then he can bestow that quality in us as well. And without that touch, there's no question of purity. There's no question of truth. Okay, would you like to say something? Good to see you, Les. Would you be able to use one microphone, please? Yeah, use this one for all of our guests.
Sure. Life is kind of like a cruel joke, you know, something has to die in order for you to live another day. So look at this beautiful hardwood floor all over think how many trees had to sacrifice themselves in the prime of their life just so we could stand on this nice hardwood floor. Only people that go to hell are people that choose hell. You're not going to go there unless you choose it.
So for anybody who didn't hear, Les was mentioning that the floor, these living entities had to lose their life to be this floor, and that you only go to hell if you choose hell, right? So will you use this mic again? Okay, someone has to die in order for you to live another day, even if it's a plant. Yes. Very nice. It's not a fair. So the word fair, this world is actually meant for our rectification. And the only way out, the only way to live righteously for the benefit of all persons is to hold fast to the Lord's service. If on our own we try to be a righteous man, like you said, we're forced to do harm to others, just even to live our life. Even to live our life, we For those who let's just say that if he was a God, he was thought he could create a better system than the one in place. So this is the normal status of the devotee. Is that he's not interested to criticize the Lord's, order, and then he has good faith. He has faith that the Lord knows exactly what he's doing and has done it for a purpose. And actually, he describes that purpose in the Bhagavad Gita and in the Srimad. And the purpose for this whole creation, which is more or less a mess, as we're stating, it always feels unfair. It's completely arranged just to give every individual soul exactly what they need. So they get the gift that they won't be happy without. Right? And there's many scriptures around the world which actually have this type of a theme that sincerity, a little desperation to rectify our misbehavior and to align ourselves with his will, not my will, thy will. Right. So nice additions, Les. I really appreciate it. So now the last point is that this little grain of devotion or this little grain of appreciation or humility or kind of non-enviousness, like Les was saying, well, the Lord's plan is greater than mine. Even that little drop of devotion is more valuable than tons of faithlessness. So as compared to all the material knowledge which we can try to accumulate and to try to lord it over these material elements and create more and more technological advancements for the same activities that the animals are occupied in, whatever we can do in terms of that path, that's all more or less useless, or compared to one grain of devotion or submissiveness to the Lord. So thank you so much. Are there some more just comments? No, I'm sorry that you're. Did you want to? Would you be able to use this mic? Because we have many people listening and they won't be able to hear unless you go into the mic.
Well, I don't have a lot to say right now. My girlfriend is like terribly sick and she's not going to make it much longer. So it'd be nice if you guys could say a prayer for her.
That's nice. Yeah.
She's got stage 4 cancer, so we're just waiting around for the inevitable now.
Yeah. I'm really sorry to hear that, Les. Yeah, we can pray for her well-being.
Okay, thank you.
Hare Krishna. So the best thing that we can do, ourselves is to take this. Is to take this the Srimad Bhagavatam and to hear this and try to apply it as best as we can in our own lives. By nature's course, You know, we all have to leave at some point. But if we spend any time we have left, because for any of us, we could all, go at any moment. So if we have some signs, then that's a good opportunity for us to, as a community, to take this spiritual life more seriously ourselves too. That if we get to that stage, it may become difficult, right? To chant, to hear, to understand the philosophy, to pray to the Lord. But there's a lot we can do for others that are in those, debilitating situations. We can chant for them. And we've been hearing that Srila Prabhupada, in his final days, he wasn't eating anything, he wasn't drinking anything. And he was his life was just going on, and his disciples understood that it was the edge. It was on the edge. And he also was thinking that he wanted to leave this world. And he asked for the medicine to be administered. What is that medicine? This Hare Krishna chanting all the time, hearing the Hare Krishna chanting. So we can do it for our loved ones who are passing away, or we can play, recordings for them if we're not able. And he asked for the diet of the Charnamrita, which is this little prasad in the temple that we serve to guests. The Charnamrita is a liquid which has been used to bathe the deities. There's small deities here called Chota deities. And the deities are bathed daily with a wonderful bath water scented with flower petals and essential oils. And they're given a bath. And that water is taken as a Mahaprasadam in the temple. So we have that in a small pot there. And that is the diet which Prabhupada was taking. So the medicine was the holy name being chanted by the devotees. And the diet was just that little drop of the Lord's mercy. So we can follow in his footsteps, and we can try to help those who are dear to us leave this world and move closer to Krishna. Thank you so much, Les, for your, sharing yourself with us. And we'll break now. We'll have some breakfast downstairs. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All glories to this